all possessions, materialistic, are extremely fleeting.
Consciously or unconsciously, everyone is trying to protect something. Protecting and carrying the articles which keep reminding us of what we are made of and what matters to us, our prized possessions. Welcome to Prized Possessions by Adisi India, a series where we ask some of our patrons to catch a breath and reflect on what are their prized possessions and what ounce of those prized possessions do they carry with them in their bags.
Hi, I'm Chaiti Narula. I am the editor of Manifest, and today I'm here to speak about my most prized possessions for Adisi.
Absolutely fascinating journey as a journalist. If I'm not wrong, you started with business journalism. So, how did this shift to fashion and lifestyle happen?
Fashion is a catalyst of society. Fashion and art have a huge prominence in making the required amount of difference that society often requires. There are certain places where news can't do justice, where the communication through art and fashion ends up doing justice in terms of the political and social commentary. For me, that is the most exciting part about art and fashion. I started off as a business journalist. Of course, I'm born and raised in Mumbai. I live in Delhi now, but I was surrounded by all the financial number people around me. I studied commerce, I studied business. So it was very normal for me when I wanted to get into journalism to do business journalism because it was the low hanging fruit in Mumbai. At that point of time, my parents didn't want me to come to Delhi. Otherwise, I would have started off being a political journalist. But yes, I eventually moved to Delhi. I pursued political journalism. What excites me most about political journalism is how you can truly serve as an interlocutor between the elected representatives and the public with an informed electorate that helps you take the right decision during elections so that the people who are governing us today are the right people and they are the people of choice of the masses. So that's what excited me about political journalism, to hold the mirror to society. And as I went along the way, um, I wanted to say more, I wanted to speak more, I wanted to get more into social commentary, I wanted to explore different aspects of communication as well. And fashion honestly comes naturally to me. Not that I'm the most fashionable person, but I have an eye to realize the kind of work that goes into fashion. Art is something which has been very, very close to my heart for many, many years now, whether it is contemporary art or modern progressive masters or going around the world to the biennales and to going to different art fairs. I've learned how powerful their mode of communication is. Um, so once I was sort of making that particular shift, I took a conscientious decision to say the stories that I wanted to say, but just a little differently. Earlier, I said the same stories through a political news network. Now I say similar stories through a platform which has got a bit of a lifestyle lens involved, where we can deep dive more into the cultural predispositions that exist in the society today. It gives us the creative freedom and liberty to create and recreate what we want to through the visual medium of photography. The inside pages of any magazine today, if you open, there's just so much of reflection of society that you see inside, with the styling, with the way the women are dressed, with the way the men are dressed, with the roles that they have undertaken today in society. If you look at the finer nuances, there's a lot to tell. And I decided to continue tell a story because at the end of the day, we're storytellers as journalists, and we're also people who need to hold the reflection and mirror what society is feeling at that point of time. And it's just a matter of medium. It was business earlier, then it was politics, and today it is luxury, couture, and lifestyle. That's the only difference.
During our research, we came to know that you're in the process of authoring a book. So, do tell us about that and when can we expect to read it?
I'm authoring a book, and the publisher would like to kill me because in the past 6 months, while I was launching Manifest, I've not written a single chapter. But the good news is I've only have 2 chapters to go. I'm almost done with the book. It's just that I'm not being able to find the time to finish those 2 chapters because I want to do it well. The book is called Cut the Noise. My publisher is Rupa Publications. I realized that in an age of misinformation and social media, there's so much of onslaught of information when it comes to skincare, when it comes to hair care, when it comes to wellness that we often get lost in what's trending and go jump on the trend. I want to be able to feed people news that they can use. I want to be able to feed people content which is verified. The veracity of the claims that I'm making are doubly and triply checked through randomized clinical trials, and I have a bit of a golden rule in terms of what I am writing in terms of content. The cut the noise comes from the fact that there's so much noise surrounding us that as a user and an end consumer, when you're doom scrolling through social media, you really don't know what to trust. Do I really need a keratin treatment done? No. Do I really need fillers? Okay, sure. But what is the side effect of having fillers done? Do I really need a profilo done onto my skin? Do I really need to put nariyal tel to have my hair grow, or do I go for a growth factor concentrate or exosomes or platelet-rich plasma therapy? Like, what do I do? You know, this is a question which I realize is plaguing the best of us, including me. I thought, why not write a book which cuts through all that noise, tells you what works, what doesn't work. In this age, you see nutraceuticals become the new pharmaceutical. And I've had friends who just end up popping 10 of these pills every day. And I turn around, I'm like, what is wrong with you that you're popping so many pills? They said, no, we're above 35 years of age, we're aging, and we think this is going to help us. The fact of the matter is, I've spoken to tons and tons of doctors. I've gone through hordes and hordes of research papers. I've gone and see what the FDA has stamped, what they've not stamped, and I've realized that nutraceuticals probably can be a nemesis in our society, because the amount of supplements we end up taking, the body really does not even require all of them. None of them have any place in science. The supply chain logistics is so off that the manufacturing, you don't know where they are getting manufactured from, because the regulation is not in place. So what you're really consuming and putting in your body, thinking that my nails will go stronger, or my hair will grow longer, or my skin will feel better, probably is just doing tremendous amount of damage to your liver. So it's basically a journalistic take on the medical misinformation around skincare, hair care and wellness that is floating around. The book is an eye-opener on what is tried, tested and experimented through randomized clinical trials, which give you proof of whether a thing works or doesn't work. A lot of malpractices medically take place. Dentists end up turning aesthetic physicians. I've seen a lot of homeopaths turn into aesthetic physicians all of a sudden. Degrees are questionable, and you see these kind of clinics mushrooming all across major metropolitan cities in the country. A lot of people go into it thinking, I will transform myself. The vulnerability is what is captured on by most of these, I wouldn't say doctors, but the clinic owners. I'm here to just show you the facts. It's up to you to decide whether you want to do something or not do something. That is one point. The other point is that I see a lot of people say, oh, you know, I'm going through tremendous amount of stress. Let me just have ashwagandha and I'm going to be fine. Now, I don't know whether ashwagandha works or doesn't work, but if you're going through any kind of mental health concern, have you really consulted a therapist? Have you really consulted a psychiatrist? Are you really doing any level of cognitive behavioral therapy? Are you following that up with prescription medication where the risk and the benefit are weighed upon, where the benefit outweigh the risk so that you become a better version of yourself? Or for you, has it become a very big taboo subject that you can't even go to a mental health expert? So I'm here to break those taboos as well. We all need to realize that we may Google, I'm feeling depressed or stressed, and the option that pops up is have ashwagandha and your life is going to be fine. Your life is not miraculously going to be fine. It probably has side effects that have not even been researched about. This is just one of the examples I'm giving. So the book has a lot of these things where a lot of things that we consume on a day-to-day basis in terms of content, and because of consuming that content, we end up consuming either those supplements or those treatments or those quote-unquote therapies. The tremendous amount of harm that they can do to your body if you are not the right candidate for it. So read the book to figure out what it is. The book is long way off from coming off because I got so caught up in making the magazine that I've got 2 last chapters to go, which I'm just procrastinating right now. I have to at some point submit them.
So, you're authoring a book, you're an equestrian, you're a golfer, you're also working on UN's sustainable goals, along with being the editor of Manifest and your keen interest in fashion. So, I want to ask, with such an illustrious career and so many interests, what are some of the prized possessions that you have acquired or collected over the years? And what ounce of those do you carry with you uh, in your bag daily?
And anyone with one glance at my life thinks, okay, I'm the editor of a luxury couture and wedding magazine. Probably I have a lot of materialistic possessions. All possessions, materialistic, are extremely fleeting. Um, I'm working in my spare time volunteering with the Global Sustainability Network, which is working towards the United Nations 2030 goal of ending human slavery and modern day trafficking. I'm a golfer. I am an equestrian as well. So maybe I have a lot of possessions. I think they're all very fleeting. All possessions, materialistic, are extremely fleeting. Yes, I do enjoy having possessions, but my biggest possession is the family and the friends that I have, and I wish I could collect all of them and put them into this one bag that I use. But I have a better idea. The way I keep my possessions always with me is through my phone. This is like my lifeline. It's, of course, opens with a picture of my nephew, who I love the most in this world. He's just all of 1 year old, and my photo gallery on my phone has only my closest friends and family members, and I have a special album which is dedicated to all of them. So this becomes my most prized possession. Also, the reason why this is a prized possession on a very business level is that my emails are here, my WhatsApps are here, my calls can be made through this. Everything, like if I lose my phone, I don't know what I'm going to do. And sure, if I lose my bag, I don't know what I'm going to do, because everywhere I go, I carry a sunscreen. I love sunscreen. It's always with me. And I have this weird thing that I look like I'm crying if I'm not wearing kajal. So wherever I go, I carry a kajal. So for all of this, I require a bag. And I always carry these three things always in my bag, because sunscreen, number one, it makes sure that my skin is anti-aging, because I use tretinoin now, and without a sunscreen, there would be pigmentation. So that becomes my most prized possession, because I don't wish to get pigmentation. Not that it's bad, but I don't wish to get it. So I always require a bag that where I can keep my sunscreen, my kajal, and my phone with the picture of my nephew on it.
Are there any possessions that you'd like to let go of so your bag is lighter, materialistically and metaphorically?
I believe one needs to travel very light. I don't travel light in terms of when I'm actually literally traveling. That's when I'm always going through excess baggage issues. But travel light emotionally is what I am getting to. I think emotionally we all need to travel very light. Emotionally we need to forgive and forget. My closest of friends tell me that I'm the most forgiving person and often get mistaken as a pushover, but I don't think I'm a pushover. I just feel that everybody deserves to get second chances. Not the third, but everybody deserves to get second chances. So as such, I have zero regrets in life, and if I go through something which is an impediment in my life, an impediment to my happiness or to my joy, I quickly introspect and see what's going wrong. If need be, I call up a mental health care practitioner and talk it out and realize how light I must travel. So traveling light for me is very, very important. And there is nothing that I'd like to let go of at this point of time, because everything that I wanted to let go of, I worked on myself and I've let go of that. In terms of material possessions, they exist today, they don't exist tomorrow, they existed yesterday, the day before that they didn't exist. So it really, really doesn't matter when it comes to material possessions. But yes, I would always like to have a financial standing where I can at least afford them to live a comfortable life. So let's not even get ahead of ourselves there. So this bag with a wallet is very, very important. I want my credit card. I walk into a mall, I feel like getting a massage, I should be able to afford it. Let's not get very overly spiritual about this.